Prime Blue Raspberry. It tastes like a medicinal gusher.
This is a certified hood classic. This is a certified...
Hey, welcome to Raven Cassidy's Raven Podcastidy. I'm Raven Cassidy. Prime. That's the brand. That is the brand of energy drink. It's just Prime. Blue raspberry flavored. 0 sugar. 200 milligrams of caffeine. Uh-oh. I don't know how... but it's vegan. It's vegan, so that's alright. Not a sponsor. 10 calories. Whoa. Anyway. Yeah, it's just Prime. Anyway. Alright. So, first I wanted to bring up, and I swear this is going to lead into, oh, okay, we don't get Prime. Gotcha. I wanted to bring up something that I probably talked about, well, that I definitely talked about in previous streams. But I swear this is going to lead to the main topic. But I wanted to talk about it again, just for posterity's sake, because I did learn a little bit more about stuff. I think you can already tell based on what I have the video here. So, the other day, I came across this video of an interview with the actor that plays Michael DeSanta from GTA 5. And in this video, this clip from the interview, he's talking about when he first saw the first trailer for Grand Theft Auto 5. Apparently, he saw it the first time as everyone else. And, well, I'll just play the clip.
Trailer comes out, and we're working. We finished work that day.
Wait.
That speech.
Yeah.
That wasn't even in the game.
No.
Oh, wait.
Speech was that speech. And trailer comes out, and it's that speech.
Yeah.
That wasn't even in the game.
No.
That speech wasn't in the game.
So he's talking about that speech that you hear that says, like, why did I move to Los Santos?
And it was just, it was just specifically for that trailer. So the trailer comes out, and we're working. We finished work that day, and we're riding home on the train. We're riding back to, we shot in Long Island. We were riding back into the city, and we took the train that day.
So I noticed he mentioned a certain place. He mentioned Long Island. Also, he said it correctly. He said on Long Island. You don't go in Long Island. You're not in Long Island. You're on Long Island. A true Long Islander would know that. I don't know if he's a Long Islander. I don't know. But, and if you don't know, Long Island is the suburbs east of New York City. So I noticed he said that, and then basically a bunch of things that happened in the past kind of clicked. So a long ass time ago, probably like 10 years, most likely when they were first developing this game, or while they were developing it, before even the first trailer came out, I went to this office building where one of my doctors is for an appointment. And this building used to be for this company called Acclaim. If you don't know what Acclaim is, they made all these crappy cash-in license games for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and into Nintendo 64 a bit. They shut down in about 2003. And originally they had the entire office building. When they shut down, it just became a regular multi-office building, which a bunch of little small businesses, doctors, and I think even a bank. So it just became like a regular office building. So no more video game stuff. At least that's what I thought. One day I come in, and there's like an underground parking area right beneath the building. I noticed this one office door has a very teensy tiny little Rockstar Games logo on the door. I'm like, okay, what is this? I didn't think much of it because I was like, well, I know they're based in New York City. Their main office is in Manhattan. So I figured, like, this is, like, some satellite office that probably has some, like, small role, like, QA testing or some shit. You know what I mean? I was doing freelance computer repair work at the time, and so I had business cards on me, and I figured, what the hell? I'll slide my business card underneath the door. I don't think it was open at the time.
Digital_Dolly says what you don't know, Raven, is that I'm very good at clipping through floors, so I would be in Long Island.
Yeah, you would be in, yes, if you put in no clip, then yes, then you can be in Long Island. But if you can't clip, then you're on Long Island. So I slipped my business card underneath the door. Thought nothing of it. Sometime later, I find out, I guess I was, like, curious, and I looked up, like, what that office was, because I'm like, does Rockstar really have a presence in this little town on Long Island? And it turns out, kinda, sorta. It turned out it was, like, some third-party studio that had something to do with motion capture. And I don't know why I didn't realize this. I guess maybe because because the office seemed too small. I mean, I couldn't really tell how big the office was itself, just because of, like, where the door was. But I figured they just did motion capture technology. Like, they didn't actually do motion capturing there. They just made, like, they just worked on or supported the actual hardware. And then I see this trailer. Not trailer, this interview clip, and I'm like, wait, they did do the motion capture on Long Island. Holy shit. So there is a chance that I was in that building while the actors were in the same building. Okay? And then I realized, oh, I left my my business card in there. Oh, yeah, and so then I did a little more digging, and it turns out, yes, that truly was where they filmed, or they motion captured the actors. The article that specifically mentioned GTA 4, because this was from, like, 2009. So it wouldn't be that much of a stretch that this would be the same one that would be the ones where they also captured the actors for 5. Anyway, I realized, oh right, I left my business card in that office. Slipped it under the door. There's a very, very slight chance, ever so slight, that one of the actors picked up my business card and said, who the fuck is this Raven Cassidy guy? So I like to think that Michael DeSantis still has my business card. Anyway, or Trevor, or Franklin, because I imagine all of them captured out there. But if I ever interview him, Ned Luke, myself, the Michael DeSantis actor, I'd ask him, like, do you remember the town on Long Island that you did the capturing? And then if he doesn't remember, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. You forget 1,000 things every day, and I guess that was one of them. So, anyway. So, like I said, that building, right, whole building used to be one big video game company, Acclaim. They made such hits as Bart Simpson versus everyone, Bart Simpson versus the space aliens, Bart Simpson's virtual reality nightmare, Bart Simpson versus the Illuminati, Bart Simpson takes on the COINTELPRO, I don't know, all this crappy Simpsons, Krusty Clown College Crew Adventure, you know, KKKKK, all that shit. And then they would eventually make Turok 1, 2, and I think 3, and then they shut down. And that's the story. I was gonna go to their auction. They had an auction for all their stuff there, and because it was possible, like, a friend of mine was like, they could have like they might have like a development kit for like the PS2 or the next gen system or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. And then it turns out you needed to put down a deposit of like at least $500 in order to buy anything there. So I'm like, nah, I don't get that much money. I'm not gonna get a couple office chairs $500 worth of office chairs from Acclaim. Like, because I'm sure like the stuff that people really want would go for way more than I could afford as a college student at the time. So, yeah. Anyway, well, like I said, 20 years ago I was a college student, which meant that I grew up mostly in the 90s, and I decided. So for my stream next week, I'm gonna be doing what I like to call Ravenclaw's 100% IBM compatible December DOS debauchery. And it's just going to be me playing old games for the Microsoft Disk operating system for the next week, the week before Christmas. And then maybe the week after Christmas, I will do the Winter Windows Wonderland, where I just play like Windows 98, Windows 95, even 3.1 games. Yeah, why not? And me and Luna, the one who had just commented earlier, we were talking a little bit about the games we played growing up, and she mentioned PUTT-PUTT. Now, I never played that myself because I was probably way too old by the time that came out. But I did know that was a point-and-click adventure game. And then I was like, you know what was my PUTT-PUTT? MYST. MYST. It was one of those game changer type games, because what had happened was, not just because of the game itself, but because what it did for the technology it was on at the time. So, CD-ROMs would be invented in like the mid-'80s. It was developed through a collaboration of Sony and Philips Magnavox. They created something called the Rainbow Books, and that was be the different kinds of formats that the CD would use. Red book being audio, yellow being data, blah, 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 blah. Purple being the Philips CDI, which hasn't been a thing since like 1995. Anyway, that's besides the point. So, consoles would slowly integrate CD-ROMs because they contained way more data than a cartridge ever could. Cartridge would contain like a fraction that a CD-ROM could. 650 megabytes versus like, what, 16 megs, 32 megs, 64 megs, which I think like the Phantasy Star games came on the Genesis, which is why they were like way more expensive. Like they were like $100. Normal games at the time would be like $60-$70, which is kind of funny because now that's what games are now, unless you adjust for inflation. And so once they started releasing things on CD, they became ridiculously cheaper because the manufacturing costs of CDs themselves were also really cheap because it's just a fucking disc of plastic. So, so certain consoles would have their CD-ROMs slowly integrated. I think like the TurboGrafx, what was called the TurboGrafx 16, later have their CD. I think that was one of the first ones. I don't think it was the first one. I forget exactly what the first one was. It was called like the PC Engine in Japan. They would get a CD-ROM. The Neo Geo would get a CD-ROM add-on. Sega CD, Sega of course had the Sega CD add-on. But this also happened with computer games, right?
Digital_Dolly says PUTT-PUTT and Freddy Fish and the WinXP Space Pinball 3D is what I used to play.
You know, I never really got to... for some reason, the computers that I got in the Windows XP era didn't have the pinball game, which I was like... I was sad, because I was like, I wanted to play that pinball game that came with Windows on some people's computers. Never got to play it. I could probably play it now. I could probably download it. There's probably like an emulator at this or somewhere or someplace to download it, but yeah. But Speaking of old games, or download games. There was this old site that I used to go on called Home of the Underdogs. And it has what they call abandonedware. Meaning like games that more or less were made by companies that are pretty much defunct. Now, a lot of these games would end up being like picked up by certain sites like GOG and stuff like that. But before then, they just had thousands of games that you could download for free because it was like a legal gray area. Technically, it wasn't 100% legal because it was still like an intellectual property that someone could own. But because whatever company went under had owned that product, there's very little chance that they would come after whoever was distributing it or downloading it. So, because technically you could argue, like, if your company went under and your company owned that game and then somebody started selling that game, because the game doesn't automatically become like public domain. You could still sue them and be like, well, I used to own that game. It could technically be mine, and take them to court, and maybe it'll be in your favor. I don't know, but that rarely happens. So, funny story. There was that first-person shooter series, No One Lives Forever. I believe it was developed by Monolith and published by Sierra. Now, Sierra would, I think, go under and then bought by some other company, Vendetti or something like that, which then was bought by Activision. So it's technically someone owns that property. The thing is that both the developers and the publisher, for the longest time, thought that the other one owned the license. So whenever one of them would be, like they have one of the developers asked, like, hey, do you think about bringing No One Lives Forever? It was a cult classic. And they'd be like, yeah, no, the publisher owns it. We can't do anything with it. We're no longer working with them, and they own the license, so you have to go to them. And then eventually somebody asked the publisher, like, hey, you can do something with that No One Lives Forever? And they're like, oh, no, Monolith has it. And that's when they're like, oh, no one knows who owns No One Lives Forever. Uh-oh. And so now it's in like a weird legal limbo, because since no one knows who owns it, it'd be kind of hard to remake the games or do a remaster or whatever, because then there'd be some legal battle over who owns it and therefore gets the rights to it, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway. First, rehydrate. Ugh. What was I talking about?
Digital_Dolly says, I loved Pinball Dude. I would play that and blast the peanut butter jelly song for hours on end in the background, therefore practically torturing my Dell pre-built cuz it had 8 gigs of RAM and couldn't handle having Internet Explorer and Pinball open simultaneously.
I know you warned me to try to tone down the, hey, I'm an old man, and therefore I did this, but I don't know how to get around it, because in the 90s, what I would do when I played games was I either had a CD I had a CD of the soundtrack to the X-Files movie, Fight the Future, I think it was called. Certain games, now we're talking about CD-ROMs again, getting back on track here. Certain games would use music off the CDs. So what you could do is swap the CD. If you installed the game to your computer where you don't need the CD, You could swap the CD, and then it'll use the tracks on your music CD to play the music through the game. Which is why, if you look up on Reddit, a lot of people thought that their favorite artist did music for Half-Life. Because they didn't know that if you had the CD for the original Half-Life, every once in a while it would play a track off the CD. And it would be like a minute long. I think when you first put on the HEV suit, it plays a track. So I guess what happened is that a lot of people would just have like a music CD in there. And they would just play a track from their album. And then they get the idea that... oh, Nine Inch Nails did the soundtrack for Half-Life. What? I thought they only did Quake 2. There's like a post on Reddit somewhere. And then people would be like, no, dude, it just played whatever you had in your computer. Remember doing that with Vigilante 8? You do that. A lot of PlayStation games did that. Now, usually you needed to have the CD in the drive in order to run the game. But what would happen is that if it used music from the CD, it would basically load everything that needed to load into memory, into its internal RAM. Because it wouldn't be able to read data from the CD and play music at the same time. So it would load everything into the memory, and then play the music off the CD once the level loaded. So what you could do is swap the CD after it loads the level with the music CD, and it would play music from the music CD during that level. Of course, you'd have to swap it back once you had to load the next level, but some games would actually have that built in, where it's like, hey, use your music CD, just make sure that you swap it. You know, you put the regular, put the game CD at this time. Very few games did that intentionally, like, it was, like intentionally made it like that. But a lot more games did it where you could just do it regardless, but you would have to know when to swap the CDs, or else the game would crash. Or, yeah. Anyway, CD-ROMs. They were up and coming. And the reason I mentioned MYST is that would become one of the biggest, like, that was one of the first big CD-ROM games of the PC. Because, PC started getting either CD-ROMs built in.
Dolly says, I miss being 7 years old and having to bring my PC in for repairs every 14 days because it overheated and shut down. It even smoked on occasion. Hee.
Really? Damn. I remember somebody was talking about, like, when they were playing BioShock for the first time, and they're like, oh my god, I thought the graphics were so cool, because I shot a Big Daddy, and then I saw, I heard, a loud spark, and a bright light, and then I was like, whoa, I didn't realize the graphics were that good, and then it turned out it was my power supply. And so, thankfully, I never really had that kind of problem, but then again, I was always kind of building my own. Well, I wasn't really, I'm trying to remember. Well, anyway. MYST would become one of the first big CD-ROM games. It was a first-person adventure game, point-and-click adventure game. It was obtuse as hell. Reason why it was on CD was because not a lot of video. There's some video, pre-rendered video. And the first would be, like, explaining basically the intro to the game, where it's like, you're this dude that you're just a nameless, voiceless dude that finds this book that just says MYST on it, and then you open it, and there's a moving picture of this island, and then you touch the page, and then you get sucked into the book, and then you land on MYST Island, and now you're trying to get out. And then it turns out there are more books on MYST Island. You're on... True MYST Islanders would know that you say on MYST Island, not in MYST Island. But anyway, although there's no one on MYST Island. Well, there's a couple. No. There's technically two people on MYST Island besides yourself, but that's Well, okay. Anyway. So on Mist Island, you would find books that would go to other ages. That's what they called them. They were just other locations. And you just have to solve all sorts of obtuse puzzles. Like, one of them involved, like, matching musical notes on a keyboard. One of them involved trying to set, like, the voltage correctly. You know, like, some games will have that game where it's, like, that mini game where it's like, oh, you gotta flip these switches, and some of them would give, like, 15 watts, and some would get 10 watts, and 7 watts. And you have to add them up to a certain number, but if you go over, you blow a fuse, and you have to restart. And then, usually it's not labeled how many watts it is, you just have to, like, figure out whatever, and then have it fill up a bar until you fill it up exactly to a certain point without going over. So Myst had that. There was another one where, like, you had to turn a bunch of wheels, and it adjusted a clock. And then you lit a stove. I could go all day about these stupid puzzles, but I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to want to hear that. But there might have been math. It was more... Like, the puzzles, the one I was talking about, yeah, kinda is math, but it's like, the way they do it is that they don't tell you the numbers. You just have to, like, guess. Like, maybe it'll just fill up, like, a bunch of pips on a bar. Because, like, if it showed the numbers, it would be easy, right? Because then you could just add them. But if you take away the numbers and just have it be like, oh, this one fills up the bar, like, a quarter of the way. This one fills it up a third of the way. So if you take away the numbers that, like, or something that would, like, objectively quantify the amount of power you're giving to a certain thing, that's what made it difficult. But there were no other, like, math puzzles in... No, there kind of was math puzzles. There was, like, an observatory, and you had to, like, look up, like, star constellations, and then figure out what day, month, and year, and the coordinates of that constellation, and then you put them into a machine, and you did like that 6 times, it would open up another door that would go to one of these ages. And so the basic plot was that you're trying to get off this island, right? You go into this one room. There's a red book and a blue book. You open up either of the books, you just see a screen within the page, and there's a guy, and it's all staticky, and there's a guy being like, "Who is this? Hey, help me! I'm trapped in here! I'm trapped in the book! You gotta get me out! You gotta find the red pages! Or the blue pages! What color am I? Am I red? Yeah, then find the red pages!" So there'll be, like, red pages or blue pages in each of these, these ages. And then every time you put another page in, it would get a little less staticky. And they're like, "Hey, oh yeah, thank you for that red page. Yeah, don't listen to the guy in the other book. He's an asshole. He's my brother, but he's a piece of shit." They didn't. Well, that's not exactly what they said, but they'd just be like, "Yeah, he's evil. Only listen to me. Oh, and if you run to my dad, don't listen to him either. He's also an asshole." And so, and if you get all the pages for each of their books, you can only do one book. I mean, you could find the pages, but, like, you can only carry one page at a time and bring it back, so it didn't matter. There's no point. You just get them for one book. And then they'll be like, "Oh, there's a secret compartment behind the fireplace." And then you do this puzzle where, like, you're filling out a grid. And if you fill out the grid correctly, it spins around while you're inside the fireplace. And there's a secret room. And there's one more red page, one more blue page, and a green book. If you open up the green book, there's a third guy. And he says he's the father of the other 2 guys. And he imprisoned them because they're evil. I forget exactly what they did. I think they tried to kill their mom. I don't know. And he says, whatever you do, do not give him the page. Just don't. Instead, find the white page and put it in this book. And so you have to do another puzzle where you go to these boxes that are like along the island and flip switches and all that. And then one of those is a white page. You can go through the book without the green book, without the white page. But if you do, the guy's like, hey, where's the white page? What do you mean you don't have the white page? What? You idiot! We're trapped here, right? He's just trapped in this, like, cave. He's trapped in this cave room. And he's just writing books because he has the power to write books that bring you places. His name is Arturus, whatever. I don't know. And then, but if you do bring the page, he takes out another book, and puts the page in the book, and he's like, okay, great, my other book is complete. We can go back to MYST Island. Oh, what do you mean you want to go home? Oh, no. Oh, no, I'm sorry, buddy. I can't bring you home. I don't have the Earth book. I only have the MYST book. You're free to walk around MYST Island. You can live there. You can. That's the ending. It's like you just go back to MYST Island. You just walk around. You just do whatever, and that's it. But you already solved all the puzzles, so who cares? If you take the red or blue pages and bring it to the appropriate book, you swap places with the guy trapped inside. And then the guy that escaped is like, ah ha ha, I tricked you, ah ha ha, and he starts ripping pages out of the book, and then like the screen you're looking at starts getting all staticky. Like, oh, okay. The dad was right. They were evil. Oh, he also like
Digital_Dolly says sounds like some Death Note-esque shit.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. Actually, now that you think about it, because it doesn't. Well, no, the trap books. But they have to touch the book. You can't just, like, write a dude's name in there and then they're trapped in the book. Like, you have to have them touch the book. It's a literal trap book. But they have to touch the book. And then and only then. And then only if all the pages are in it. Because that's what you need in order to swap places or some shit like that. I don't know. And if you help the father, who is canonically the good guy, he also destroys the books. So he kills his sons! What's the opposite of patricide? I forget. Sonicide? I don't know. But they're evil. I forget why, but they're evil. And then, in the sequel, you go against the father's father. He's also evil. And you trap him in a book. It's all about books. You got a book? Trap him in the book. I mean, the reason why it's a trap book...
_Dolly says W dad moment.
Exactly, yeah. Well, the thing is that all the books just bring you to a place. But if you just make a book that just says... I mean, I'm assuming they write what the place is. That's how they create the place. But if you just say, like... You just write a book that just says, yeah, it's just a jail cell. And then it becomes a trap book. Because then they just go into a jail cell or whatever. Although they did retcon that. In one of the later games, you find out the sons are still alive because the worlds they were in were actually like whole worlds. They just weren't able to escape. So you go to that island to kill yet another guy. And then you have to get his puzzles. So it's all about a family that hates each other. It's all about a family that hates each other, and they try to kill each other through the power of books. But it's books that are literally powerful in a bad way. Or it could be a good way. You can write a whole, like, book about, like, a utopia or some shit. Although he never does that. He just writes books about, like, fucking Neolithic places. Neolithic tribes. And... I mean, maybe you have to be a better writer in order to write about, like, a more advanced civilization. Like, I guess if you're just like, yeah, it's just a bunch of caves. And there's a steampunk train in there. And there's a gate with a lock on it, but you can go underneath the gate. When I saw that in the sequel, I'm like, oh, wow. I thought that was a game. Anyway. So the sequel comes out a couple years later. It's called Riven, Riven. And that's the name of the other world, the new world you go to. And the puzzles in that one are even more obtuse. But there was this one puzzle that I thought was like kind of subversive in a way that actually made me go like, holy shit, that's actually kind of clever. And all it is that you go to a gate, like a door, and there's a lock on it. So you're like, okay, obviously I have to find the key to this lock. But there is no key. What you have to do is just click underneath the door, and you just crawl underneath the door. And that's the solution. Every other puzzle is like, oh, I gotta find these orbs. And then I spin the orbs, and it reveals a color or a symbol. And then I go to this other thing, and then there's a grid of orbs. And then I change each orb to the color of the symbol that was in the location, and then it opens up another door. And then there's a lever, and you pull the lever, and that opens up 3 doors. And you go, it opens 2 doors, and then you find another lever that'll close one of the doors, but open the other 2, and you have to have them all open, because then you need an item that you could have to get, you know what I mean? Like, it's always this crazy convoluted shit, and then there's just this door that you just go underneath.
Digital_Dolly says main character skinny legend W.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that's actually kind of clever. 12-year-old me was like, wow, that was... Huh. But yeah. And then, of course, I was too young to figure out... I'm still too young... I still can't figure that shit out on my own. I had to get a walkthrough. That's how I pretty much beat every like adventure game. Let's just get a walkthrough and be like, yeah, this game's awesome. Hey, you just do a bunch of shit. Yeah. There was this. So anyway, yeah. So that propelled like the CD-ROM, because that was like one of the biggest games of its time. And what's funny, I mentioned this before on a stream. You know, a couple of years ago, there was that whole discourse about walking simulators. Like when Gone Home came out, and everybody thought that like, oh god, now every indie game is just going to be you're walking through a house, and then you're finding letters about your sister, and it turns out she's a lesbian, and she has a lesbian friend that she fell in love with, and they're running away, and that's the game. You don't complete any objective yourself. You just find out your sister's a lesbian. You know what I mean? And then that's it. And then if you really want to, you can find a duck, a Christmas ornament, and then you bring the duck up to the attic, and then that's it. I mean, mind you, the story was interesting, but yeah, the gameplay was just you going through rooms and looking through stuff. But like that was the point of the game. The point of the game was to look at stuff. So, you know, it's the what you would call it, the environmental storytelling game. A lot of people thought like, every other game is not going to be like that. You know what I mean? The term walking simulator, which was kind of a derogatory term. It's like you just walk. What? That's the game. You just walk. And you know, of course, that would be over exaggerated. There would be a lot more walking simulators that came out since then, but you know, not nearly as much as people thought there was going to be. So apparently a similar discourse happened when MYST happened. A lot of people thought it's like, oh shit, now there's going to be like all these first-person adventure games where you're just solving dumb puzzles. Where's my Quake? Where's my Doom? We're not going to have Doom anymore. We're going to have Doom, but you don't get a gun. And then instead of shooting zombies, you talk to them. And then instead of beating them, you solve a puzzle. You play them in chess. But it's like a weird variant of chess. It's hell chess, where there's 3 pieces. And then you make 2 moves. If you do the right moves, you win. The guy's like, okay, here's the key. Here's the red key. Now get the shotgun. Oh, I get a shotgun now? Yeah, you traded you traded to this guy for a blue key. Oh. Oddly enough, there would be an adventure game that came out called Harvester that had a puzzle that involved chess. And then if you beat the puzzle, the guy that challenges you to the chess game takes an axe and chops his own head in two. And then the key is inside his head. That's not a joke. I should play Harvester next week. It's a fuck of a game. But yeah. So yeah, a lot of people, I mean, mind you, the gaming scene wasn't nearly as big, and the internet wasn't as big, so you didn't see that discourse a lot. But there were a lot of people there like, oh, I don't want to play these dumb adventure games, man. Gonna be all. It's all the games is gonna be. It's just gonna be. Just walk around and there's videos of people talking to you saying, "Get me the blue page." I don't want to get the blue page. I want to get the shotgun, man. Anyway, but I thought it was the coolest game of the while, and also the graphics were actually at the time. And let me emphasize, at the time, were good. If you look at a playthrough of the game, of the original game, it looks like shit. But I swore there's one shot in the game where you see God rays going through trees, and I thought, holy shit, that looks like a photo. If you were to see that picture yourself, it looks like, holy shit, that was rendered 30. I could render that in 30 seconds in 3D Max or some shit. I can make a Unity asset flip and make that in a minute, and it'll look like total shit, but it'll still look better than that part of MYST. So it really goes to show our perception of graphics as we get older. How real certain things would be, how they would look to us. And that actually makes sense because a long ass time ago, in an article, I read an article about Photoshop. It showed a newspaper clipping, and it showed what was an obvious Photoshop. This was from 1914, of a guy getting out of a car, and the guy was obviously pasted from another photo. But the thing is that people weren't used to that kind of shit, so a lot of people thought that was real. A lot of people thought, oh my god, and then the article revealed, it's that person wasn't there. That's not a real person. That was taken from another photo. And then a lot of people were like, oh my god, it's like he was actually there. It was like he was always in the car in the first place. And yeah, so, nowadays we look at it and be like, yeah, that's obviously Photoshopped. I can tell because I've seen other Photoshops and by the pixels, You see the pixel, you see an obvious, cutout around the guy, like an outline. I was trying to remember where I would find that. I literally just remembered it. Anyway, yeah, so Home of the Underdogs. I mean, most of these games were, really, really old. For my time. Arm Joe. Oh my god. This was a weird fighting game that's based on Les Miserables, the musical. It was a fighting game that had the characters from Les Miserables. You got Alf's thinking skills. Under chess, Genghis Khan 2. Gex! You got Gex. Hell yeah. Fucking IDOS's foray into making their own mascot. We know how well that turned out. Pretty fucking good. For some reason, this article keeps comparing it to Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim was a better game. He had a gun. Oh. Space Cadet 3D Pinball. Hell yeah. I can download it. Yeah, whatever. I'll do that later. I was afraid it was going to show, like, files and dox me in some way. I don't know. Paranoid like that. What was I saying? Yeah, anyway. What was I talking about? Forget the pauses. I'm able to, like, take those out when I do the MP3 recording. I can take them out afterwards. So there's no more long pauses in the actual audio file. So if I pause for a long time, don't worry about dead air. Actually, speaking of dead air, I'm gonna take a short break. Be back in a minute. Whoa-oh. Wait, how did I... Oh, God. Whoa-oh. Anyway. Yes, I was talking about... I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, because I switched to the pot... yeah. It was the stupid scenes. Yeah, anyway. But yeah. Yeah, I would have killed to have... I think this was optional. I think you had to download it from someplace. Or, like, buy a... Or hope it came with your computer. Like, if you bought it from, like, Dell or some shit. But, yeah, it was a lot easier to control what was on the PC then. Nowadays, you can just go on whatever website and play whatever's on there. Especially in the 2000s and the 10s when Flash was a thing. But even then... So you were talking about playing fucking this and Peanut Butter Jelly Song. What I would do is, because this was before MP3s, I would find a WAV file that was like a 30-second clip of a song. And I would open up a sound editor or whatever. It's like a built-in WAV file editor in Windows. And I would basically just loop the song clip over and over again. And then on top of it, I would just have it play like random sound effects. And I would just listen to that over and over again. And I always named the files like cool or awesome or some bullshit like that. And then play, I don't know, Quake, Doom 2 or some shit. I don't know. Doom would be the... That would actually be like the biggest... The most prominent game of my childhood, at least when it came to PCs. Obviously Nintendo, or... well, whatever. Nintendo was probably the bigger one. But PC-wise... Doom would take it, because... It was one of the first games... It might have been the first game, but it was... It popularized the concept of shareware. Which, if you don't know, it was basically like a glorified... an elevated demo. Because you could buy it or download it from a place, but you were encouraged to share it with other people. There was no... It was completely legal to either copy it or share it with a friend. So these people were saying... They didn't say, don't copy that floppy. They were saying, please copy that floppy. And the first Doom game, the shareware, that had the entire first episode, which at the time was full third of the game. right? So basically, you got to play original Last Doom. A good chunk of it for free. You know what I mean? I got one more ball left.
Digital_Dolly says, dude, my childhood was this, Flash games and Newgrounds mostly. We live in two different worlds.
Yep, two worlds. Yeah, you're right. I mean, mind you, Flash games would be a bigger thing, but you know, when I was in my late teens or whatever. Alright, that's enough of that. Lust. And what did I do? Or whatever. Anyway. Wow, I blanked out for a second. That's gonna get cut. Yeah, so Flash games, yeah, that obviously would have been my big... That would have been a big thing of the, probably my late teens, early 20s. When, like, Newgrounds... Yeah, that's when, like, Newgrounds came out. Before then, there was Shockwave.com. Because before it was Flash, it was Adobe Shockwave. Oh, no, not Adobe Shockwave. It was Macromedia Shockwave. Adobe would buy Macromedia, and they would own Flash and whatever. But before it was Flash, it was Shockwave, and then they had a site called Shockwave.com, and it was pretty much just like a collection of all their stuff. You know what I mean? I think Flash was meant for, like, non-internet things, and Shockwave was for internet things, but then eventually it was just all Flash, because then it became predominantly internet shit. So, but yeah, there's a site called Shockwave.com.
Digital_Dolly says TikTok actually got me back into Newgrounds. Fuck that site. For real, for real.
It's still up? Oh, yeah. Now it's mostly videos. Shockwave.com. I doubt it. Shockwave. Wait. Go to shockwave.com. Well, it's probably not going to work because it's going to need a... Yeah, yeah, there's no way that's going to work. Oh, you can go back to 1997. 1998. Whatever. Who cares? Oh, that's the building. That's the office building that has the fucking... So all of this used to be Acclaim, but then they shut down in 2003. And so presumably, now this is only going to make sense in the video version, but presumably behind this bush on the right side is where the whatchamacallit, capture studio is. But it might also go up and, like I said, I have no idea, because I saw a photo of the inside of it, and it looked way bigger than I thought it would be. So it probably goes multiple floors. But yeah, so that was... Forget. Yeah. That's probably... So early Shockwave was like really simple-ass games. There was something called Cow Tipper, and it was just you walking around a farm tipping over cows and then not getting caught by the farmer. There was an animator named Joe Cartoon, and he would just make these, like, fucking Just these really crude ass animations called like Frog in a Blender. Gerbil in a microwave. Frog in a blender. Frog Blender 2000.
What are you looking at? Woof.
But it's funny because he wants you to do it. He taunts you.
Like I said. Wow. What a pansy. Hey, look, I'm spinning! I'm spinning! Hey, dumbass, you trying to make me puke? Yeah, jerk. Whoa, stop, whoa. Don't. Whoa. Cut it out. Whoa, come on. Whoa, stop, whoa. Okay, joke's over. Cut it out. Okay, joke's over. You suck. Dickweed. You suck.
Oh, that's a little too loud. Yep. Frog got blended. That's the kind of shit that was. That's the kind of hilarity, fucking whatever you can find on Shockwave.com. Thanks to Joe Cartoon. So, oh yeah, might as well show one of these long plays. This is the kind of game we were talking about. There's gonna be a lot of video in this. Yeah, this is the original ass version. Oh, it came out in 91. So I was like 8 then. Damn. Not even 8, probably 7 or 8.
I realized the moment
But I probably didn't actually play it until much years later, because, again.
As I had planned, it continued falling into that starry expanse of which I had only a fleeting glimpse. I've tried to speculate where it might have landed.
Digital_Dolly says, was Shockwave purely an American thing, or did I just miss it due to my age?
Yeah, it was a purely before your time thing.
Lecture is futile. Still,
I think by the time,
hands might one day
by your time, it probably wasn't.
or unsettling to me.
I don't think Shockwave was in the the term was even in the
And so I close.
was being used for that
Perhaps
context anymore. I think it was just Flash.
Yet been written.
So you fall into a crevice, and then the book is there that says MYST on it, and you click on the book, and then you're taken to MYST Island, and then there's all these fucking.
Listen to him.
There's a fat guy in the blue book that's crazy.
An egotistical fool and a liar. Bring me the blue pages. The red ones. Don't bring the red ones. I implore you. I've been wrongfully imprisoned. You must.
You see, it's an analogy. You take the red page. You take the red pages. You're being lied to, but if you take the blue pages, it's you're learning the truth about gender dysphoria or something. I don't know. Yep, you don't want to get blue paged. But anyway, oh yeah, and then Dad. And then you solve the puzzle in the...
Digital_Dolly says he's so up close. Personal space, sir.
He's in a book! He's just up to the window, like he's like a puppy at a pup store, being like, "Ah! Give me the blue pages! I'm stuck here! Ah!" How much for that fat guy in the trap book? Oh, this is what happens if you get the blue page.
You lose.
Now that's personal space.
Yes. I'm free. Oh,
That's the red guy.
thank you, my friend. My dear friend. You've done the right thing. You stupid fool. It looks like perhaps you're in the book now. And what have we here?
In the
A
book.
page. Oh no. I hope you enjoy your new home as much as I enjoyed it.
Asterian's younger brother tapped us in the book. Uh-oh.
I can't see you.
That's the bad.
Many questions for you, my friend.
But then if you do the good ending, you find the dad. He's like, wait, who the fuck are you? Oh, by the way, my sons are evil.
You? Don't come here to Dunny. Not yet. Oh, I have many questions for you, my friend. As you no doubt have for me. Where should I begin? Oh,
In the beginning,
perhaps my story is in order.
6 billion years ago. Oh.
My name is Atris. I fear you've met my sons, Cirrus and Achenar, in the red and blue books on MYST Island. In my library. My library. Oh, it contains my works, my writings. Oh, I wrote many books that linked me to fantastic places. It's an art I learned from my father many years ago. Oh, but the red and blue books, those were different.
Why'd you make all the books so boring?
I wrote those books to entrap over-greedy explorers that might stumble upon my island of MYST.
I like to think that even though he has his magic, he's a bad writer, and that's why it's the island is full of puzzles that don't make sense.
My sons, Cirrus and
It's like Alan Wake.
many journeys together.
Yes, he has the power to change worlds, but he's a
Gave them free rein.
he's a mid Stephen King.
Perhaps it was not wise.
Like not quite
See the greed
better than Garth Marenghi,
going in them.
but not as good as Stephen King.
Told them about the red and blue books. Their imaginations went wild. They dreamed of riches and power. Of course, they did not know the books were traps. They begged me for access to those books, and I, of course, denied them. Oh, they devised a plan. An evil plan.
See? Evil.
No idea to what extent their greed had progressed. Their own mother. They used their own mother. Oh, my dear Catherine. To lure me here to Dunny. Of course, I could return to MYST, except that they removed a single page from my MYST linking book. I cannot return without that page. You, my friend, can bring that page to have told me what my...
Okay, so this is what happens if you don't bring the page.
My friend. You've returned. We meet face to face. And the page, did you bring the page? You didn't bring the page. You didn't bring the page.
Motherfucker.
Who are you? Oh. Did you not take my warning seriously?
No, you're the one who said that your sons were evil. Why should I believe you? You wanted me to get involved in your family bullshit. Shut up.
Dunny. You and I will live here. Forever.
Oh. I'm gonna draw a line and you stay on your side. Anyway. Oh. You could try to open the book, but nothing happens. Or no, wait. Oh, no, wait, no. So you have to do this bullshit where you have to open up these boxes, flip the switch on all the boxes. You flip all but one, it opens to the book. I mean, to the page, and then you go to Daddy, and you give him the page.
Ah, my friend. You've returned. And the page. Did you bring the page? Ah, give it to me. Give me the page. Please give the page.
Give me. No, I'm getting the shakes.
The page, my friend. The page. Give me the page.
Yeah, he just keeps. My page disappears in his hand.
I have a difficult choice to make. My sons have betrayed me. I know what I must do. I shall return shortly.
And he gets sucked into the book. And then a minute later, he comes out and says, "It's done. They're dead. I killed my sons. They're not going to torture you anymore." All right, Luna, Digital Dolly, sent a memo.
So the thing is I obviously can't relate to things like MYST and stuff like that, but I have played games of this quality in my childhood. And though I will say they were mostly like I said, on Newgrounds and stuff. And the reason why I brought up Newgrounds is because TikTok reminded me of it. Because there's this sound going around on TikTok that's the intro sound to the series Alfred's Playground. It is extremely fucking disturbing because I went and looked it up. Should not have done that. I forgot the logins to my old Newgrounds account, so I made a new one like a couple seconds ago, just specifically for that. And I already regret it because the thing is with Alfred's Playground is it's extremely like it handles topics like abuse and self harm, but it's done in such a crude, cartoony art style. Like you're like, ew, what the fuck? And all like the noises are mixed up and shit, and it's just fucking disgusting. And I'm like, where did my dolphin game go? Where did my dolphin jumping through hoops game go? Where's my horse jumping over hurdles? Where's my time where I used to like shoot monsters and shit like that? No, no. TikTok has to remind me of the dark shit I found on Newgrounds that I specifically tried to look away from because I just wanted to play the stupid dolphin games. Jesus Christ.
Speaking of disturbing games, I was disturbed by like the dumbest shit as a kid. But a lot of them had to do with games. My avatar. Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh, there we go. Never mind. So there was a point-and-click adventure game called The Adventures of Willie Beamish. And in the game, I think it was made by a subsidiary of Sierra Dynamax. Now, Sierra was known for making point-and-click adventure games that were, like, pretty hard, and also had a lot of scenarios where you can die. King's Quest, Space Quest. Forget what else. I don't know. That was their two main whatevers. And if there was a way you could die, you could do it. Okay. So anyway, BRB. So a company under Sierra made this game called Adventures of Willie Beamish, and in it you just play as a kid. Basically, he was like a lesser Bart Simpson. Like he was this middle school kid that always did pranks and got into trouble or whatever. And it takes place on the last day of school. And his pet frog, Horny, that's his name, Horny, steals the principal's toupee and lands him in detention. So you start the game in detention. But before you're in detention, you have a daydream that you're playing in the Nintari video game championships. He has a video game system called the Nintari. But it had like a joystick that you would see on a computer, whatever. It looked more like a PC than a Atari or a Nintendo or whatever. And he's playing against some kid, his championship. But then the teacher comes in. She's this really ugly old lady, and it's like there's almost like a close-up of her face that just appears during the stream, and that scared me as a kid. I don't know why. But anyway, that game is weird. Because it starts out kind of like as a weird, kind of like a slice of life type dealy. Because, like, again, you're just playing as a kid. There's nothing really fantastical about it. It does get a little weird in, like, the second half of the game. But the first half, and it's a little bit cartoony. But it's like, it's just you just going through your day. And what was odd about it is that it had a, instead of, getting killed or whatever, although you could die in the later half of the game. There are scenarios where you do die, but again, it's very cartoony. Like a bully literally turns you into a basketball, like how a cartoon character would do that. Like he crushes them and then into the shape of the ball and then like dribbles them around or whatever. But then it cuts to him in the hospital in a full body cast. And the doctor's like, yeah, oh no, he's not going to be able to make the Nintari championship now, because that's the whole point of the game, is that you're trying to survive or whatever. Like something happens with your dad, and if that happens, like if you don't do anything about it, I forget what happened. I forget how exactly it asked, but basically your dad dies. He loses his job, and then he gets a job as vice president of a sweetener manufacturer called PUTT-PUTT. And it turns out it was just like, they were just going to make him a patsy for some scandal or whatever that involved like plumbers union or some shit. And then he was going to take the fall. And then at the end, he tries to get out of it, but they capture Willie and the dad and lower them into a vat of the sweetener. You don't escape or some shit like that. But anyway, the first half of the game is just you just doing kid stuff, and like you'll go home and you have to erase a message on the answering machine that's like the principal saying like, "Oh, your son is bad. Blah 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 blah. He did this today." And you won't get a game over right away if you don't do certain things, but instead you have a trouble-o-meter. So if you do something that would get you in trouble as a kid, you'd see this thermometer, and it would fill up. And if it fills up all the way, it's a game over because they send you to military school. That was like a trope back then, where it's like, oh, you're acting up. You are unruly. We're going to send you to military school. They're going to shape you up. Excuse me. And so that's what happened in this game. So, if you don't do that, you get in trouble, or you have to do an extra thing. There's a real-time system, and if you stay past your bedtime, you get in trouble. Your mother will ask you to do certain chores. If you don't do that, you'll get in trouble. There's a part where your mom asks you to push your little sister on a swing, but during then, you have the option of pushing her really hard, and if you do, she launches up into outer space, and then comes back down. And then it cuts to her in a full body cast. And the doctor's like, your son's insane. It's all that Nintari. You've rotted his brain. You gotta send him to military school. And then that's the game over. So it was like this, and at the time, what was kind of scary about it to me was that all like the previous point-and-click adventure games were like, they looked like 8-bit games. It was like there was like a sprite moving on a background, and it had like the same fidelity as like an NES game. But this looked more like a cartoon, like a real cartoon. Like there was actually like frame-by-frame animation and all that stuff. Like it doesn't, by today's standards, it doesn't look that good, but like back then it looked way more like an actual cartoon than a game. So I was like, holy shit, like, because, you know, I didn't understand the concept of point-and-click adventure games. Like, you know, now I know that what that is. But back then I was like, yeah, it's some weird, like, cartoon you control, but you gotta, like, do stuff, or else you get in trouble. And then I never got far enough to, like, discover, like, the actual plot. I was just like, yeah, you're just, like, a kid, and then, like, you have to do stuff. You get out of school, and then, I think eventually, like, you have to enter your frog into a race, and there are ways for you to win, but half of them will get you in trouble, so that, like, you'll get disqualified. Like, if you feed your frog soda, he'll jump really high, but then he'll test positive for performance-enhancing drugs. And so you lose because you don't... Because, like, the idea is that if you do anything that will prevent you from getting the money to be able to enter the championship, which for some reason has a buy-in of $25,000. I don't know why. So the other thing is that you also have to practice on your video game system. But if you don't cover the message thing or intercept your report card, they'll lock your Nintari. It was like one of those old like PCs that actually has the lock on it. Which wasn't really so much for security reasons, but it's just that so you don't accidentally turn it on, like waste power or some shit like that, like offices and shit. And they had a key, and then they have the sister, so you have to like blackmail your sister into giving you the key. And then you have to practice on the Nintari a certain amount of times, because if you don't, by the time you end the game, it cuts to you at in some rundown house because your parents went poor because you didn't win the contest because that had a really big prize. You had to practice enough in order to get the prize of $1 million for the fucking Atari championship, which back then was yeah, that's not a thing. This was way before esports. The Blockbuster Video Game Championship was a thing, but there was no cash prizes. There was no buy-in. You just went to a Blockbuster and signed up for it, and then you played a game once a week for 3 weeks. And then if you got a high enough score, you got to go to the semifinals, which were different, depending on where you lived. Mine was in Manhattan, because it covered the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I won the first year. They had us play... They had a Super Nintendo and a Genesis, and I played the Super Nintendo one. And the first year they had us play NBA Jam, Clay Fighter, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter. The last two were fighting games. NBA Jam, obviously, was a basketball game. And now you think oh, it's a fighting game, you're going to fight against other people. No, you fought against the computer. It took your score. Because fighting games back then had scores. And you would get more points based on how much life you had left and how fast you beat the other dude. And then if you used your specials, you had a special meter, and if you didn't use your special meter, you got more points. So I actually did. I prepared for this more than I did for anything school-wise as a kid around that time. One, because I didn't like school. And two, because I liked video games. it was probably the first time that I ever participated in a contest of a thing, a skill-based contest of a thing I was good at, right? Like, every other contest, like 9 times out of 10 was, like, random, like a sweepstakes. And then the rest of those were, like, stuff I wasn't good at. But this was something I was good at. Video games. So, I played it. And, of course, my mom the whole time was like, Raven, if only, like, you spent that same amount of energy with your schoolwork. And I'm like, just be like, yeah, but school sucks. Nintendo doesn't. School doesn't what Nintendo does, okay? Mom, shut up. Anyway, so yeah, I put more effort in studying into the Blockbuster Video Game Championship than I did anything else as a kid. And so I won, like, the first round, which was whoever got the highest score of that store. And then I went on to the semifinals, but then I lost. That was then a single elimination NBA Jam tournament. You played against another dude for like half a game. And then again, it was single elimination. I lost in the third round, and that was it. I lost. First, we hydrate. Ugh. And then the following year, I think it was 95, they had a special cart of Donkey Kong Country. All it was like, I guess it was like a special ROM where there was no map. Once they would turn on the machine, once they turn on the Super Nintendo, it immediately brought you into the first stage, and then you just kept going. This actually kept the score, unlike the real Donkey Kong Country. Regular Donkey Kong Country only kept, like, how many bananas you collected in your lives or whatever, and if you collected those letters that spell out Kong. But this had a score, and you get points for every little action, like killing an enemy, picking up a 1-up, picking up a banana, picking up one of those letters. So I'm just running through these stages, just picking up whatever. And then you do that 3 times. Once a week, 3 times. For 3 weeks. And then I got the high score of that, but the way that they advanced people, they didn't have a semifinal. They just took whoever the highest scores, like the top 10 highest scores across the country, and then have them go to the finals. So I got the highest score in the store, but not high enough to go to the finals both times. So technically, now that I realize it, I won more times than Dr. Disrespect, because Dr. Disrespect didn't actually, he didn't, no, that's a lie. He didn't win the Blockbuster Video Game Tournament. He didn't win any of that. I did. Not the finals. I won the local one. So I'm Mr. Two-Time. I'm Mr. Local Two-Time. Unlike that hack, Dr. Disrespect. Yeah, disrespects the integrity of Blockbuster by lying. Stolen valor? Yeah? That's what I would call it. I actually won the local. I won the local. I was the best video gamesman of my local Blockbuster. Take that, Dr. Disrespect. That's your real name. What are you a doctor of? Lying. That's what I thought. Probably taller than him too, probably. I don't know. Anyway. Probably not. Was he like 6'6"? No, he's tall. Maybe that wig adds an inch or two. But really ought to challenge that mother. That'd be funny as hell. If I could ever get proof that I actually did win, I'd be like, hey, motherfucker, I challenge you. If I beat you in Donkey Kong Country, you have to tell people you didn't actually win. I don't care that's part of your character. Raven Cassidy doesn't lie. Raven Cassidy's a character, but he doesn't lie about winning Blockbuster video game championships, sir. You motherfucker. Oh, shit. There was a, oddly enough, speaking of the special Donkey Kong country cartridge, apparently there was a Star Fox one. Called, like, the Star Fox Tournament Weekend Edition, which I didn't even know existed until I started downloading ROMs for the Super Nintendo. And then I found this weird Star Fox ROM that was also kind of the same thing where it just played a stage, and then you had points, and then it just kept going. I went to this convention once a couple years ago, and they had this thing called, like, the high scoreboard, where instead of, like, a tournament that you signed up for, you just waited in line, and then you waited your turn to play this whatever game they're playing at the time. So, like, for a couple hours, they would play this one game. Another section, they would play the Star Fox game. And it was 3 stages, and if you beat the 3 stages within 10 minutes, there's, like, a bonus stage that's just, like, endless. You're just going down and picking up rings to get more points. And apparently I got to, like, the second stage, like, really quickly. And, like, the employee was telling the other guys, like, yo, he actually got to the second stage already. It was like something out of a fucking movie. I didn't win, though. I did have first place for a while, but by the time they ended it, I looked and someone beat my score. Maybe if I played again, I could have beat it, but who cares? I don't even know if there was a prize. But yeah. That was the height of my video game championship. Was the Blockbuster and Star Fox Weekend Edition, which I don't even think was a contest. I think it was just some free play thing. Maybe there was a prize. I don't know. I don't really remember. But, like, what else? Right. Before we wait, we hydrate. Ugh. The Newgrounds. That was a site. You know, there was a short time they tried to spin it off into an adult site called Nudegrounds, where they just decided just to make it part of the original site. Like, they just put the adult stuff on there. But for a short time, they were like, let's separate it and call it Nudegrounds, Nude Grounds. And it had a drawing of Tom Fulp nearly naked. Tom Fulp being one of the founders of Newgrounds. I don't know why I remember that. Yep. I... Hmm. Yep, MYST is old. Oh, Lord. What else? Good thing I know how to cut these long pauses out. There's MYST. That was the there we go.
What are you looking at? Wuss.
Home of the Underdogs. Load Runner. Oh my god. I used to have that. I came with my old PC. Yeah, so, okay. So the PC that I played MYST on, like, was my parents'. It was actually, like, their work computer, because, like, my grandparents did paperwork for my uncle's company, and then, they got a computer, and it had a CD-ROM, so I got to play on it, and that's how I got MYST. Then later we got another computer, and it came with this Load Runner game. And it was funny because it had a built-in cheat system. Clicked on the top, and there's a menu that said cheats. You got to cheat. There was also, I think, the last installment of King's Quest. But it was like very, it was also kind of animated the same way that Willy Beamish was. Like, it was almost like a cartoon. It was like if somebody tried to render, like, a Disney movie in a Super Nintendo. The same kind of pixelation. That made sense. Like, it didn't have the fidelity of one, but it had the kind of animation. But yeah, oh yeah, there's a lot of interactive fiction, text-based games. I used to play that for a short while during the early aughts, because like before like the indie scene really picked up, there was a lot of interactive fiction. There was this famous one that referenced Zork a lot. Zork was a famous text-based adventure game in like the late 80s or mid 80s or early 80s. And it always starts out with you in front of a White House. So this other one, this indie game, this fan game, you're a time traveler, start out in front of a White House. But then it turns out, and it looks like it's a period piece that's around like the Civil War. But then a time traveler comes out of nowhere and said, yeah, I really wanted to meet this chick. I really wanted to bang her so badly, but I broke my time machine, so we're kind of stuck here. There's this really good there's this really good one called 905. And it has a really cool twist. How it is that you wake up in your house, right? You look around the house. Oh no, your alarm clock says 9:05. You're late for work. So you go through the motions, you type in, put on clothes, take shower, or whatever. Leave house, get in car, drive out. And then it says, you approach the office. You picked up your name tag. You drive past the office that's on the name tag. You want to pull up to that office, and so you say yeah, and then you go into the office, and then you sit down at your desk, and then it says somebody notices you. They call security, and they have you arrested. And then it cuts, and then it shows a like a news report saying, "Hey, did you hear this story about a guy that invaded another dude's house, killed him, took his name badge, and then went to his work in his place?" And so the twist was that you weren't the guy on the name badge; you were a dude that killed the guy in the house, and but they don't tell you that. You're just assuming, oh, you're playing as the guy. And you're just going through the motions, waiting for the actual plot to kick in, and it turns out that was the plot. You were never the guy. You were another guy. It was an unreliable narrator. And so what you could have done, and you could have done this in the first playthrough, was type in to look underneath the bed. And if you do that, it'll say, you see the body of the owner of this house. And so there was kind of foreshadowing. Like, it was unreliable in the sense that it doesn't explicitly tell you what happened, but if you looked around enough, you would find out what the real deal was. I know I just spoiled the game, but it's like 5 minutes long. And also, who the fuck is playing text adventure games nowadays? So, whatever. There's another good one called, I think it was called Lock and Key. And at first it starts out as a text adventure game. You play as, well, you start out in a jail cell. And you're trying to get out. And then, I forget exactly what the puzzle was. But basically you trick a guard into letting you out. And then the guards catch you. And you go, okay, you caught me. Here's my business card. And it turns out he's a pen tester. Like a medieval pen tester. He was testing out the security system. He wasn't actually a criminal. He was hired by the king to test the security. So then the king comes up to you and says, hey, I need you to build me a dungeon for my worst criminals. They seem to get out very, very easily. So I need you to build a set of traps in order to trap these dudes. And then it becomes this weird strategy game where it's like you have to build these traps in a certain order. Because you can build all 10 of them, but if you don't build them in the right order, the criminal who escapes will use the previous one of the earlier traps, to gain advantage on one of the later ones. Like, one of the traps is a mercenary. But it turns out, it's just a room with a mercenary in it. But when the criminal comes into that room, turns out he's a friend of the mercenary. And so you think at first that that's a detriment. You think like, oh, well, that's not a good room to have. Because it's just his friend. Like, he's going to help him out. But you're supposed to build all the rooms there. What you're supposed to do is have that room before one of the other traps where I think the mercenary tries to turn on the criminal and get him killed. And so the mercenary gets killed and then the criminal gets injured in a way. Because it's like you're trying to wear down the health of the criminal. So you do need to build the room with the mercenary in it. But you have to do it in a certain order so that the mercenary gets the other dude injured. And then, if you fuck up, it'll say, like, your retirement was an early one or something like that. Because you get executed. But if you win, you decide to take a job for the king. And it says, you get out of your early retirement. Because you took the job for the king. It was a kind of interesting game. I think it was called Lock and Key. Yeah. That's it. That's the extent of my knowledge of interactive fiction. That was a very short time, but there really wasn't much to do in terms of indie game scene. Because this was like the twilight between click and play, Flash, and actual indie games like that you would buy. Before then, it was like free games. The indie scene was like free games off of Newgrounds, or it was these interactive fiction games, or it was like shit that you built with a program called Click and Play. Basically like Flash, but if programmed by a 5-year-old or 4 5-year-olds. It was made for 5-year-olds because it was way, way easier. But that also meant that a lot more people used it. Made a lot of shit with it. Click and Play was my Flash, just like MYST was my PUTT-PUTT. Ray. It was bad. That was a bad time. Click and Play was a bad time. There's this weird game called like Floor 13, and it was like you're a secret agent. No, you worked for a secret agency of the UK, who are the Minister of Plants and Fish or some shit. But you're actually a secret police dude, and you're looking into. It was basically like a simulator. You just start out in an office. And you just chose from a menu of different things of like, be like, oh yeah, there's this guy that's a suspected terrorist. Do you want like people to look into him? And then it's like, how intense do you want the surveillance? Because if you make it, if you have too little surveillance, whoa, surveillance, you won't get any information. But if it's too much, and it'll scare the guy away. So you have to have the perfect amount of surveillance. And then you can capture people and torture them, and you have to use the right level of torture. Don't torture them enough, they never tell you anything. Torture them too much, they die. You could order to search a place. You can have it either do a covert search, or you can have them ransack the place. Obviously, a covert search would be covert, but probably not going to get anything. Whereas if you ransack the place, you're more likely going to get the thing you're looking for, but it's going to scare off your guy. And it turns out there's like a specific order that you need to do things in. It wasn't like a simulation, it was more like a, you can call it like a puzzle game. Because you had to do it in a certain order. Like it was a trial and error thing. You had to figure out like exactly which, what choices to make. It was always like a specific choice where it's like, okay, this guy you have to ransack his place. This guy you have to torture at level 1. There's level 1 torture, or interrogation, excuse me. This person you need light surveillance. This guy you need heavy surveillance. So like, you're just supposed to figure that out through trial and error. But if you fuck up too many times, your office blows up. And what's funny is that they always show the office before every day, and it pauses just long enough to make you think, oh shit, is my place gonna blow up? I know I fucked up. Did I fuck up enough? And it just lingers just a little bit. A shot of your office. And then you're like, oh, good. And then when it cuts away to the screen, you're like, oh, good. And then you fuck up again. They show the office, and you're like, oh god, did I fuck up this time? Oh no. Oh, okay, good. And then you try to do well. You go to Downton Abbey, and you just get a message saying, like, stop fucking up! You have 10 days to reverse the public interest, because that's like your meter of like whether or not you're doing well or not. Like the public interest or some shit like that, or the public safety or some shit like that. If it gets low enough, eventually see the office, and it lingers a little too long, and all of a sudden, oh, it blows up, and you lose. Because that's how they fire you. They do it literally. I should play that next week. I don't know if that's a All right, this is going off the rails. Wait. First, wait. Yeah, that's gonna do it for the podcast. I think that's all. I think I exhausted everything I needed to say about old video games. I probably could go on, but I hit that wall where it's like I forgot. Yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm gonna go play a video game now. I'll see you guys next week for the podcast. The podcast will be next week. Probably talk about like my favorite games of the year, either next week or the week after. If I can't think of another topic, or then that's the kind of podcast this is. It's just gonna be me rambling about little things, dumb things. After I drink an energy drink and a tall boy of Bud Light, a can of Prime and a can of Bud Light. What is this? How big is this? I don't know, it's like 25 ounces. Tall boy can. Per 12 ounces. No, that's per 12 ounces. How much ounces is it? Say. Hey, how big is this? 25 ounces. 1 pint, 9 ounces. Hey, welcome back. Unless you got anything to say, I'm going to stop the podcast and I'm going to move on to probably play Metal Gear again. So, I kind of ran out of things to say. I kind of ran out of steam. Not so much energy wise, just talking. And I don't want to have this go for too long anyway, because I would have to truncate this into a digestible whatever, where I can easily edit it, remove all the pauses, then upload it somewhere. Upload it to rss.com. And then, if I feel like it, I'll pay for the service that puts it out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All you have to do is pay them $15 a month, and they'll put it out on Spotify. Anyone can do a podcast. That's the crazy thing. Anyone can do a podcast. And if you pay a service roughly $15 a month, they'll put it out on all the services that most 99% of people listen to their podcasts on. So eventually, you can go on Spotify and listen to Raven Cassidy's Raven Podcastidy, where he rambles about nothing for 2 hours. Slightly buzzed. It's great. God bless America. Yeah, I'm going to play Metal Gear again. Might as well boot up the... Alright, let's read this, listen to this memo. Luna.
So I think what we need back in the fashion, you know how um, certain hairstyles come back into fashion. I think we need that with video games. Space Pinball needs to come back. Jumping off a building 9/11 simulation. All that good stuff. It just needs to come back. We need the 2011 graphics again. I am a big supporter of that.
Oh.
So yeah.
Obviously, post 9/11 was dark. Obviously. And I'm talking about a guy that lived not that far from where it happened. Let's go into my 9/11 story, shall we? For Fortunately, no one I knew was involved with it, or was directly affected by it. But I was close enough to witness the events. I was in community college at the time, for my first year of college, taking all my core classes, and I'm taking a calculus class at 8 in the morning, and a girl runs into the room and says, "Hey, somebody flew a plane into one of the Twin Towers." And we're like, "Huh, that's weird." And she's like, "Yeah, they're closing school for the day because of it." And we're like, "Okay." And as we're walking out of the school, I'm thinking somebody flew a charter plane, like a Cessna. I was like, "That's weird. Why would they close classes for the day? That's weird." But all right. And then we walk out, and sure enough, I look towards Manhattan, and there's just a giant plume of dust, and we're like, "Oh, oh." My
Digital_Dolly says you don't know the backflip 9/11 simulators?
I know there were 9/11 games. I'll get to that. I might as well share my 9/11 story because I fucking feel like it. Allow me to indulge me to tell my 9/11 story. It's a day that changed America forever. I turned 18 2 weeks before 9/11. Okay, my adulthood. 9/11 separated my childhood and my adulthood. Okay, so I think that's kind of significant, even though I wasn't directly affected in the sense that, again, no one I knew, died in the attacks, World Trade Center, or was on the flight that crashed in Pittsburgh, near Pittsburgh, or the Pentagon. It was still, still a pretty memorable day. Memorable being a very being a very charitable word. You know what I mean? It's, they say you never forget. You never forget where you were. You never forget 9/11. So this was a week or two before I got my license. So normally I was taking the bus to there, the public transportation. Stepfather comes by, picks me up. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Yeah, Raven, they leveled Manhattan." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, they knocked over Pakistani terrorists knocked over the World Trade Center. And it fell sideways. And the force of the building falling sideways leveled half the island." Keep in mind, now mind you, like I said, we're not that far away from the city. But this was also before social media and you had CNN.com and all that stuff. There was a great panic of what the fuck was going on. So even people that were relatively close didn't know. And he's not an idiot. He was an EMT at the time, so he had the radio, he had the police scanner. So there's just all sorts of just overload of information happening. So he probably knew more than what everyone else was. I mean, he was completely wrong, but he probably heard more things than the average person did at the time. And he's driving me home. And, again, still listening to the police scanner. And, I heard some things that that I'm probably never gonna forget. Just just people talking casually about the things that just happened. I don't feel like repeating them. Nothing really interesting or funny. Just things that you wouldn't want to hear during this kind of thing happening on a normal Tuesday morning. And then I was a cashier at a grocery store at the time. Well, okay. What happened was, so then I got home. I immediately went to my room, logged on to IRC. If you don't know what IRC is, it's basically like the proto Discord, right? Except it was only text. right? There's no video chat. There's none of that. It was just text. But it was the same as Discord in the sense that you had different servers. You logged onto these servers, and then there were all these chat rooms in that server, and blah 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 blah. There was one that I was a regular of called Final Fight, #Final Fight, and I'm like, guys, terrorists just, I think Pakistan just leveled Manhattan, and they're like, Raven, turn on your news. Manhattan's still pretty much there. It's just the two buildings that are gone. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. Because, mind you, when I was picked up, it had just happened, right?
Digital_Dolly says this sort of stuff.
Okay, she just brought up a link to... Thanks, Ruffle.com. Oh. Oh, that's loud. And this... Oh, this was 10 years ago? Oh. Wait. Oh, wait, am I using my mouse? Oh, whatever. I don't care. No, there's a lot of shit that came out, like, immediately after it. I mean, a lot of it's shitty, because it's 2001 new rounds, but still. Yeah, so thankfully, I were to find out, like, oh, it wasn't nearly as bad as we thought it was. Also, we didn't know who did it. Obviously, it wasn't Pakistan. It was Afghanistan. It was, or Al-Qaeda. It was Al-Qaeda, but they were based from Afghanistan. Whatever, blah, 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 blah. But again, that was the kind of panic information that was happening at the time. Later that day, I'm working as a cashier at a grocery store, and we're still hearing random shit that most of it wasn't true. Like, oh yeah, F-18 shot down 2 more planes. Because, again, we didn't know if this was going to continue. We thought this was going to continue. So, like, this was like... The following week felt like one long day. Like, I slept during that week, but it felt like one long day. And thankfully nothing else happened. We just like, oh, there were 4 planes. One of them hit the Pentagon. Okay. 4th one crashed. Okay. I don't really know what's going to go on. And, and then, for the next, couple months, it was cool to hate Arabs. No one was gonna fault you if you said anything racist about Muslims. Or Middle Easterns in general. No one was gonna fault you. Oh, God. That was... a fuck of a time. You might... Mind you, there wasn't, like... And thankfully, there wasn't, like, fucking... mass violence happening amongst them. But there was a lot of ignorance. I think my mom saw a dude with a turban on. That, like, ooh, probably don't want to wear that. Didn't say that to the guy, but we were just driving by, see a guy with a turban. She's like, ooh, maybe... And mind you, it was one of those, the dude was more likely Southeast Asian. He had the kind of turban with the knot, which usually are worn by the Sikh, S-I-H-K, by Indians or Pakistanis, mostly, which have nothing to do with Muslims. It was a completely different religion, a way more peaceful one. They do not believe in terrorism in any sense, and then even even Muslims, only one sect of Islam would even consider terrorism. The Sunnis are like, no, we don't even dream of terrorism. But the Shiites are like, maybe. Most of them are just like, well, it wouldn't be the worst thing if it happened, but I'm not going to go out of the way and do it. And then, of course, a small part of them are like, no, terrorism? Yeah, that's awesome. So, but you had people just saying, like, the dumbest shit. Being like, that guy's wearing a turban. Oh, my God. Like saying this, like, afraid for him, mind you. Not saying, like, that motherfucker gotta go. Like, she was saying that, like, afraid for him. Mind you, she probably knew that other people would have misinterpreted it, but like could have very well did not know herself. But you know, that was weird. That was a weird time. You ever experience casual racism on a mass scale? As an American, it was, and any millennial, millennials. Anyone older would have been alive at the tail end of the civil rights movement, right? Millennials would have experienced 9/11. Earlier people would be too young for it. So for millennials, that was millennial Americans. That was probably like the biggest round of casual racism happened. Was a year or so since 9/11. Kind of fucking wild. It was perfectly acceptable to call people sand N-words, let's just say. I'm laughing to cope, mind you. I don't think it's funny at all. I'm laughing as a coping mechanism. I'll just letting you know that right now. But the idea that it's like, it's just people saying that word. Because that was the other thing of like using. I don't know if people still do that, where like they add a word to the N-word to describe another race of people. I'm sure some people still do that, but I haven't heard that in like years. But I did hear sand in front of that word a lot between 2001 and 2003. So, like how this episode just got really dark all of a sudden. Did I even leave this in? I don't know. Just have a trigger warning being like, hey, at 1 hour 48 minutes, I talk about 9/11. I know this episode is mostly about old video games, but I do talk about 9/11 an hour and 30-something minutes into it, okay? Just a little warning. This might be the time that you skip to the next episode or a completely different podcast. I don't blame you. All right, let's see what Luna has to say.
So like I said about Alfred's playground. Jesus, why is that so hard to say? I feel like during the time I've been alive, so like during the almost 2 decades I've been alive at this point, I feel like I've aged like 60 years, you know? Like I'm sorry, but maybe I just grew up a little too fast because of my experiences on the internet. Like, I saw gory shit, dude. Uh, I saw the weirdest shit online. Uh, I still remember one thing on Newgrounds that was like one animated pixel dinosaur fucking another animated pixel dinosaur, but the dinosaur it was fucking was like dead. Uh, so yeah, I basically saw animated dinosaur necrophilia when I was like, what, 6 years old, and it stayed with me to this day. And I'm like, once again, where did my dolphin games go? Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like within the time that I've been alive, like, times have changed so much to where Alfred, to be fair, Alfred's Playground came out in 2007, but even then, I feel like since it's resurfaced, and I realized what it was. I'm like, oh, fuck, shit, right? Like, what I'm saying is, I feel like, I used to remember the times where I, played my silly dragon game and didn't have a care in the world. And now the internet's all, fucked up and gory, and everything has to be political in a sense. And it's like, no, where is my stupid Tetris game without having to shoot Osama bin Laden in the middle of it? Like, dude, where the time where turning your brain off and playing a game was normal go? Like, you can't play a game brainlessly anymore. If you want to play a game now, you gotta listen to people yell slurs in the background. That's just how it goes nowadays, and it's fucking saddening to me.
It's funny you say how, like, you felt like you grew way older in a shorter amount of time. I feel the exact opposite. And I think it's because I had access to the internet way later. Now, I would start having internet in the mid-90s, but it was dial-up, right? Almost every person that had internet access at home would use AOL and would have a dial-up internet. So, like, you had a very much limited version of the internet you have today. One, because they're just, because of the bandwidth, but two, also there just was only, there's only like a percent of the stuff that's here's today. So even though I had internet as a teenager, it was not the same internet it is today, of course. And because of that, I wouldn't see the real fucked up shit until like my late teens, early 20s, with the Something Awful forums. They would have a thing called pain.jpg, and it was basically just a whole bunch of disturbing shit in one picture. Usually what they would do, the way they would utilize this picture, is now, back then, it was kind of uncouth to directly link to a picture on somebody else's website, because you're stealing their bandwidth. Nowadays, it's like, who gives a shit? But they called it hot linking. And so this is before like Imager and other like free hosting sites. So a lot of people would host their pictures on their own computers or servers or sites that they had to pay money for, and they had a limited amount of bandwidth. So when somebody else would hotlink the picture, they were stealing their bandwidth. So what they would do is that they would write a script so that if it went to if the image was being accessed from a certain site, they would replace it with another picture. So if somebody was posting on a forum with a picture that they hotlinked, some people thought it was a good idea, have it redirect to pain.jpg. And yeah, that was a thing. Like, you were seeing like mutilated bodies and gore and all that, like real gore, borderline snuff shit. Oh no, it was actually legit snuff shit. They would just put that on the page. I heard there's something now called the Gauntlet, which is like a bunch of videos of horrible shit, but I haven't seen any of it because, like, I hit that age where I became sensitive again. At the time, I was mostly desensitized. There was a big site, a really popular site in the early 2000s called Rotten.com. I don't know if that still exists, but that was like the forefront of like shock shit. Like, if you want to look at the weirdest shit, the most disgusting shit on the internet, you went to Rotten.com or Style Project. But that was that kind of internet. But so anyway, like you said, like, now that Zoomers just have instant access to that, as soon as they get on a computer, you can look at the most horrible shit in the world. And that ages you 3 times as fast. I, on the other hand, because I had internet so late...
Digital_Dolly says, why can't I just go online and read Shrek fanfic again?
I'm one of the lucky ones. So I got to age in elf years. You have to age in cat years. You're now 60. I'm still 25 in a way. Sorta. I don't feel 40. That's the thing. It's like I'm 40 years old. I don't feel 40. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. I don't know why. Like mentally. Physically, don't have the energy that I had in my 20s. But I don't feel any really that much more mature or just older in general than I was when I was in my 20s. Like, there's nothing that made me go like, oh, kids these days, you know what I mean? Like, I will talk about the shit I grew up with, but I have no reason to. And there are times where it's like, yeah, I don't quite get that. This trend that's happening. Be like, yeah, all right, yeah, all right, I'm just gonna chalk that up to me being too old for that. But other than that, like, I just don't feel. I don't feel that. I don't feel that growth as probably younger people would. I heard that, like, boomers, they looked way older when they were younger than people today look now for a weird reason. Like, there was like a Vsauce that kind of explained why. And I think it's just because, like, over time, like, people would just be more healthier at that age, at a certain age. So, like, a 20-year-old in 1960 would be, like, on average, less healthier than a 20-year-old today. You know what I mean? Just because of the progress of medicine or whatever. So because of that, they would look older. But also I heard that Zoomers also age a little faster than Millennials do, but I don't know. I don't know how true that is. I think that's just a joke. I got carded today. I don't know if that was because, like, when I bought the beer, I got carded. I'm 40 years old. Now, I don't know if they did that because they had to. Maybe they just wanted to make extra sure. But that was the first time in a long while that I got carded, so they asked for my ID. I think they just had to, like, they have to type in a birthday. Whatever. I don't know. Because I'm lucky enough that people would be like, yeah, you don't look 40. And if only like a few people said that, then I'd be like, okay, they're just flattering me. But, like, almost everybody, when I tell them how old I am, they go, wait, no, really? So I'm more led to believe that I actually do look younger that I look younger than I actually am. Maybe. I don't know. I think I do. I look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I don't look 40, but that's just, me. Could be biased.
The thing is, I was today years old when I figured out about the Alfred's playground thing, and I keep going on about it, but it really disturbed me because curiosity killed the cat. All right, if we're talking about cat years, curiosity killed me. Um, I hate it. I hate it. I hate the internet. I hate how TikTok makes me look up sounds of funny cartoons, or at least what I think are funny cartoons, and find uh imagery of a cartoon dog cutting themselves and getting violated by a bunch of, like, little minion elf things. Um, cause like they literally say, like, at the beginning of the episode, like, I have friends in my wall, but I can't tell anyone. And then they proceed to get violated by a bunch of tiny little tooth fairies, like, actually sexually violated. And then after that, they throw up and they go, I want to hug. You know what that means? We're going to the cutting box and actively cut themselves. And I just, what the fuck, people? Like, I heard people talking about um the thing on TikTok, like it was some comfort show, like it comforted their, like, PTSD, and I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I should watch that. Watch that. Wrong. It gave me PTSD. Holy shit, dude. What the fuck?
Now I know why you like My Little Pony. This is the podcast no one has ever gone to listen to again. And I don't care. I don't care. Man, what? How are we? How are we both that quick to flip tone? How are we able to flip and go dark? How, like, what makes us just throw dark out of nowhere? Both of us. Not just you, me, too. Remind me of 9/11. I'm like, here's what happened. Here's my experience. And I'll laugh to cope, but... Although, actually, it doesn't really bother me that much. I mean, it was a long time ago, and... It was a pretty stressful week, but, other than that, I don't feel like I was traumatized by it.
Digital_Dolly says you understand what I mean.
Yeah, more or less. I think I do. But, oh, God. I have to make a note of when this podcast gets dark and then just have a thing being like, hey, at this point, you may want to skip the rest of this shit. Or maybe just maybe I'll cut it in half. Being like, this is the part where it gets dark. This if I had a Patreon, this is the bonus section. This is the bonus episode where we talk about sick shit and 9/11. When were the days of Joe Cartoon? I wanted to be able to see Frog in a Blender again. That's my comfort food. It was such an innocent time. That was the craziest thing you can see on the internet, was Frog in a cute cartoon of a frog being blended. That was the worst shit that was on there. Was a cute little cartoon of a frog being like, hey, I'm in a blender, I'm in a blender. Oh! Now I have to set up a Patreon just so that I can have this as a bonus episode. This has to be a separate This has to be a separate. I cannot have this be part of the previous part of this. This cannot be the same MP3. I cannot have this part of the MP3 be in the same zip code as the first part. Oh Lord. Not your fault. We both walked into it. Both throw dark.
Digital_Dolly says, and now Terry's real cat's being put into blenders and uploaded to TikTok.
TikTok allows that shit? I thought TikTok was just a gateway to that shit. I didn't actually think they were putting that on TikTok. Maybe I misheard you, but right. There's almost a part of me that wants to go racist, be like, yeah, of course it is. The Chinese are trying to desensitize us. They still own TikTok, right? The Chinese. You know, like the entirety of the Chinese, right? They own... No, I have no idea. But I know, like, the CCP kind of sort of has a hand in TikTok, because that's why they wanted to ban it a couple years ago, or from America. But then they were like, no, Gen Z would riot if you took away their TikTok. Originally they're going to be like, hey, we have to have a U.S. business buy TikTok, or else we'll shut it down, we'll ban it. But then I think they decided against that, because they were like, yeah, Gen Z would tear apart this fucking country if we took away their TikTok. You cannot do that. Half the country, well, most of the country that's going to be able to vote in, like, or is going to be most of the voting population within 20 years, will fucking riot. So, yeah, I think they're just like, nope. No, you get to keep your TikTok, I'm sorry. They weren't gonna vote for you guys anyway. You really think Gen Z is gonna vote Republican? Fuck that. No, they hate you. Say what you will about the GOP. Most of Gen Z fucking hate you. It's like, what are you gonna do? Really? You're trying to get on their side? No, just keep pandering to the old people and realize you're gonna die with them. So like, just make the best of it. Just keep getting the old people to vote for you. And then when they die off, you also die off, and then, just let the neoliberals and the leftists and maybe even the socialists take over the country. Just punt. Like, don't try to go for the touchdown. Just punt. Okay? Don't make any big moves. Don't try to take over the game. Maybe just beat the spread for now. And then, maybe go for the field goal or just punt. But don't try to win the game. You ain't gonna win. It's been going left. Sometimes it swings in the other direction. It almost did that a couple years ago, but say what you will, like whatever side you're on, it's going in one direction, whether you like it or not. So this is totally a bonus. We now have the missing episode. Raven talks about 9/11 and politics, and reveals his political nature. I don't fucking care. You know what's funny? I don't know why I decided to make this like a podcast, not podcast, like the point where I make this it's like a thing I would actually upload to a site that could potentially distribute it to like actual podcast sites.
Digital_Dolly says TikTok is often a gateway to the most disturbing media cause they're like, hey, look at this cute thing. And then I say okay, and because of that, I now need extensive decades worth of therapy.
I feel like I'm lucky because all TikTok does to me is try to red pill me. Like I just get like transphobic, homophobic shit. I don't get the disturbing shit. And I try my best to like try to, have it not do that. And I even told my friend, like, hey, do you know how to, like, stop TikTok from trying to red pill me? Like, I like to have it I'd rather have it show up things that I like. Isn't that the point of the internet, is to look at things you like? I mean, YouTube was really bad with that. Like, you would be like, hey, I like video games. Would you also like some misogyny? No, YouTube. But they go hand in hand. A lot of people that like video games are also making videos about misogyny. No! I actually had to download a Firefox extension to block that shit. So I can still look at videos of things I like. Not the videos that YouTube thinks I would like. I'm gonna have some fucking douchebag in Silicon Valley tell me what I want to watch. No. I tell you what I want. You don't tell me what I want. I tell you what you want. Fuck off. I know you guys tend to lean a little bit to the left, but you kind of got lost in the sauce there, and you're trying to guide me in a specific way, and I'm like, no. I have hobbies. I like to keep it that way. I like to look at things about my hobby. Now, mind you, I would also like to look at more and more lately, I would like to look at videos about guns. Because I like the mechanics of guns. I don't own guns. I don't plan on owning guns. I don't really have any strong feelings towards the ownership of guns or whatever, or gun control laws. Like, I think something should be done, but what exactly? Because I think a lot of the solutions that are suggested aren't good. Like, they're like, we need to ban this gun, and it's like, yeah, but then you're gonna have, there's like a million other kinds of guns. They're like, we need to ban the AR-15, and it's like, that's like trying to ban a Honda Civic to try to stop street racing. You know there are other cars, right? All you're going to do is piss off the people that own Honda Civics, and the people that do illegal street racing are going to get other cars. Like, there are other guns besides the AR-16. Like, please... AR-15? Excuse me. Whatever. Did I say 16? I'm sure there is an AR-16. I think it's a shotgun. I don't know. Whatever.
Like, the thing is, it's not just TikTok. It's also just any streaming platform you can think of. Like, I'm sorry, but people literally shout the N-word in public for like donations and shit. Like, Newgrounds, TikTok, Twitter, especially if you're on the wrong side of it, which I kind of was. 4chan, obviously. Yeah, the internet's just fucked. I'm sorry I'm going so dark with this. Jesus Christ, dude, I do not want to hear about, like, maggots in orifices of humans anymore, okay? Like, what moment that used to be, like, kind of fun and exciting and thrilling because you're like, ooh, horror story. But now it's just too much, you know? Like, I'm sorry to my generation, but there is a limit. There is a limit to how much we can mentally handle. And we should know that limit. We shouldn't go past it. Just for our own safety. I know we all have ADHD, but please, please.
I don't really know. Maybe because I'm a little less sensitive. Or maybe I'm a little less sensitive, so maybe I'm not quite picking up the stuff you're talking about and seeing it as... Like, I can't quite think of examples. It might be because I'm just being like, oh, yeah, maggots, yeah. But I don't think I see enough of that well, maybe because I'm not as online as I used to be. But there would be the slim chance that I will come across something sick. I actually caught it on Twitch once. An Ubisoft game came out called I think it was Ghost Recon or something like that. And what had happened is that the day it came out, because it was an online only game, it wasn't working, even though it was single player. So you couldn't get the game to work. So it would just keep saying like, "Oh, the servers are down. The servers are down." So I went online to see if this was affecting anyone else, and it turns out it was. And I went on Twitch, and I looked, through that category of that game that came out, and half the videos were just people at that screen that says the servers are down, and the other half was just showing random videos of dumb shit. And one of them was the Christland shooting. Because remember when the...
_Dolly says not unsensitive, you just haven't been online enough.
Yeah, one of those was the footage from the New Zealand shooting, because the guy recorded himself, remember? And by the time I realized what it was, because I'm like, this is... wait, am I looking at a... Wait, is this like an airsoft... Oh, God. Immediately click off. Like, what the fuck am I looking at? Because, like, and I'm like, oh. And then I kind of froze for like I immediately clicked off, and I kind of froze for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh. It was the subscribe to PewDiePie guy. Right. And he killed a bunch of people while he recorded it. And somebody thought it was thought it'd be really, really funny to stream it on Twitch. So, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I don't think I see it as much, but like I said, I do know that sometimes, like I said, when I'm on TikTok or whatever, mostly what I see... Alright, fine. But I am turning off Alfred's Playground. I'm looking up the TV tropes. I will not Alfred's Playhouse is one of the most surreal and disturbing web videos on the internet. I will bring this back up because it's rather safe. You scroll down and scroll through it just to see if there was anything fucked up. The series is about a traumatized, mentally ill dog named Alex Alfer, who tries to forget about his abusive childhood by imagining himself in a happy fantasy world. In the videos, his alter ego, Dictator Pickles, emerges, who is an axe-crazy psychopath who dreams of world domination. Alfred also shows himself to be incredibly needy and lonely, often forced out of his fantasy land by harsh reality. The series has been likened by some fans to David Firth's works, such as Salad Fingers and Spoilsbury Toast Boy. The series is very not safe for work and has full sexual imagery and is pretty disturbing things and has a touch of surreal humor. Alfred's Playhouse was created by Emily Eustace, who based the image largely on her own life experiences. A full-length movie of the series was produced in 2017 while her YouTube channel was terminated due to her advocacy of neo-Nazism. The video can still be found on her Newgrounds account. Okay. No, I'm not going to watch it. Although I am like, what the fuck does this look like? Because obviously this can't be the real, like this photo, I guess. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's part of the show, but I'm sure that's also fake out where then it's the fantasy world. But then when it goes to the real stuff, it's probably, that's where the really fucked up shit is. And I think it's probably get out of bed, but don't worry how the blood got there. Good morning. If Steve Martin violated in your sleep again, you will not care. Because there's a place you can escape to mentally, where the only silliness is making forced entry for the purpose of self-preservation. Here's at Alfred's Playhouse. Okay. I'm very tempted to say that I might not. Well, oh, I just looked at the second entry and I'm like, yeah, okay, now we know. Okay, I see what kind of. Years of the making. Oh, there's a movie. Okay. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to comment whether or not this would be something I would actually be disturbed by, because I don't know, and I test it. But on surface level, it's like, well, this is more surreal than it is. Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I want to know. I think that's going to do it. Yeah, I think that's going to do it.
Digital_Dolly says Alfred main character was named after a Nazi BTW.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're definitely done. We are done. But thank you for... You know what? No, I'm not going to assume anyone got up to this point. I don't know. Maybe... Like I said, I'm definitely cutting the second part out. Making it a bonus episode. Or it's going to be the lost episode. We finally have, in the second iteration of the Raven Podcastidy, we now already have a lost episode. No, don't be sorry. I would have said something if I truly didn't. Like I said, this is actually that, but that's the nature of this podcast. When there are no rails, the train goes wherever. You know what I mean? That's the whole. That's where it goes. That's where it goes. Oh. Yeah, that was I'll see you guys next week. I don't know how else to end it. On the stream next week, I'm going to be playing. It's going to be Raven Cassidy's Raven Claus's 100% IBM compatible December DOS debauchery. I'm just going to be playing random DOS games. Fuck it. I don't know. Who cares? It's Christmas. That's my. Nah. Ah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. I'm gonna take another short break, then we'll get to Metal Gear, and that's how we'll do it. Oh, I will be back in a minute. I'll be back in a minute. Just 30 minutes? Yeah, sure.